Word for you today. Good little devotional. It says, your Boaz season, Tuesday, March the 19th. Your Boaz season. What's it talking about? Well, let's take a look at Ruth chapter 2, verse 7. As we read this, there's a man named Boaz who's a landowner, and his foreman is reporting to him. And here's what the foreman is telling to Boaz. He's talking about this young lady that Boaz sees out in the field picking up grain. She said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvester. She went into the field and has worked steadily from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter. Boaz comes and he sees somebody he doesn't recognize, a young woman out working in the fields, picking up grain. So what would happen is the landowner would hire his people to go by and cut and gather all of the grain. But what they did often was they would leave some out there, and if some of the grain fell on the ground, they would leave it and wouldn't pick it up so that the poor could come by and pick it up. Now, they didn't pick it up for the poor. The poor had to come and get it, but then they would have something to eat. They'd have to put forth some effort to get it. Ruth is this young lady that the foreman is reporting on. Remember, her mother-in-law is Naomi. And Ruth's husband and Naomi's husband died. And so they are pretty destitute. They have no way of providing for themselves. Ruth has gone back with Naomi to her hometown, and she's working to provide for both her and Naomi. She's noticed by Boaz, the owner of the field. Boaz is a wealthy man. He notices her hard work and commitment to her mother-in-law. Later on, he marries her, and they become the great-grandparents of King David. Wow, talk about a feel-good story. So, how can we honor God with our work? And in honoring God with our work, our Boaz season, somebody notices our work. Somebody recognizes it and recognizes our value. How do we do that? Well, it starts with energy. Have you ever seen somebody at their job and you think, man, this person really hates their job? They have no energy. They have no motivation. They're just almost sleepwalking through it. You know, they're supposed to be waiting on you, but it's like they're just walking up hoping you'll go away before they get there. God has given us health and strength to work. Paul said to the Thessalonian church in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10, if a man will not work, he shall not eat. Really needs to happen. He doesn't say if a man cannot work. He says if a man will not work. There's a difference. There are some people who can't work, and we should come along and help them. But there are those who refuse to work. They just need to go hungry. They really do. They get cold, that's tough. They need to get out and work. And what we've done is we've rewarded people who don't work. So, how can we honor God with our work? Energy. Put energy into it. Whether we feel like it or not, put your energy into it. The second thing is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm. Colossians chapter 3, verses 23 and 24. Says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for men, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Have a good attitude while you're working. You say, but you don't know my boss. Well, what these verses are saying is get your eyes off your boss, get your eyes on Jesus. Work as if you're working for Jesus. Because as a believer, you really are. People are looking at you to see what kind of a worker you are. And if they know you're a Christian, it's a reflection on Christ. So, work with energy. Work with enthusiasm, and then give it your best. Just as we read in those verses in Colossians, we're working for Christ, and He deserves our best, doesn't He? So we should show up on time or even early, do our best, and do it with a good attitude. If we don't do this, we're robbing ourselves. We're robbing the person we're working for. And you know what? We're also robbing God. There was a man named Richard Foster. He tells a story about when, in his younger days, he went up to Alaska and was living in Alaska and was working. He's working among the Inuit people up there. He was only a teenager. He'd gone to help build the first high school above the Arctic Circle. but the work was backbreaking. One day he was digging a trench through the frozen soil. Can you imagine digging a trench in the frozen ground? An Inuit man, that being Alaskan, watched him for a while and said, he's watching this boy dig and thinking, what's he watching me for? Then the man finally said to Richard, he says, "You are digging a ditch for the glory of God." Richard never forgot about that. He thought nobody would ever remember that he dug this ditch, or perhaps even that a ditch had been dug in the first place. But he said, "I dug with all my might because every shovelful of dirt was a prayer to God." You know, everything we do, whether we're digging ditches, no matter what we're doing, we need to do it as we're doing it for God, because really we are. We are. And the number of people who have worked well, they've worked with energy and enthusiasm and gave it their best, were discovered by somebody else and given a much better job, because that's the way they treated this menial job. There's really not a low job. It's really what we do with it that makes the difference. Have a good day.